It's Friday the 5th of June, and this is this week's Recruitment Roundup. Right, so you found yourself on the job market, you're looking for a new position, you've jumped on a few job boards, and the one thing you're seeing right now are massive amounts of applicants already applied to the roles. Even those that have only been open a couple of days have got anywhere between 300 to 3,500 applicants sat on them. It's disheartening, right? You're looking at it wondering, what chance have you got? Well, I guess very much like the lottery, the idea is you've got to be in it to win it. So you could always apply, or in a previous post I mentioned about looking at the opportunity to short circuit the system, perhaps think like a recruiter and approach the hiring manager, or find out who the hiring manager is in the business, give yourself a better chance rather than just being a name on an applicant tracking system. But also something else we're looking at is really what's fueling that market. Now, the furlough scheme leads to a lot of uncertainty for people, and uncertainty is a big driver when people look for new jobs. So the thing that sort of underpins the view that perhaps we've got a bit of a skewed market right now is really considering who the applicant is and taking a broader view in regards to the different types of vacancies there are out now. So I did some research and I looked at the fixed term contract market. It's an unloved market in most recruitment environments, and actually ironically right now it remains the same. It's still very much an unloved market. So typically the vacancies of very similar stature, sort of marketing briefs and the likes, that are getting 300 to 500, thousands of applicants on the permanent side. On the fixed term contract side are getting much smaller numbers. So it does lead me to think that it's the furlough scheme that's ultimately got a lot of people at home being uncertain about what their job is right now, and having a look around and applying to the roles they're seeing online. So they're not entertaining the fixed term contract roles. Why would they? I mean, if they're still in a permanent job, they will get a payoff, a redundancy arrangement or something like that if the worst comes to the worst. And at least there's some stability in the furlough. So why would they take something that's got an end date, like all maternity cover contracts or fixed term arrangements have? So also leads to the view that when the furlough scheme comes to an end and people slide back into work as normal, demand picks up in the market for those businesses, confidence will return to the employee, and we'll probably see a drop-off in those applicant volumes going on. Now, this kind of ties over as well into talking to a few of my colleagues who are speaking to candidates all day long about the various vacancies they're working on. And we also reviewed the trend in regards to, are those people immediately available, or are they people that have got notice periods because they're employed? And actually the larger proportion is for people that are still employed and are just on furlough. So although we do recognise there is an uptick in the unemployment rate, obviously with a lot of contractors unfortunately having their stuff curtailed to cut costs, or projects put on pause and the likes, and seeing some of the unemployment statistics and the companies announcing redundancies. Which brings me on to my next topic. Even though companies release bad news, it's not always actually really bad news for the firm. So a good example of this is Monzo. Over the last couple of days, there's been news of 120 redundancies, unfortunately, in the business, as people just aren't using their cards. Often that was connected to the idea of normal transaction stuff, or the overseas transaction piece was big for them. But actually, they're still hiring. So at the same time as laying people off, they're advertising live briefs. So it's kind of a confusing message in that respect. And in a lot of redundancies, we also see job creation happening with those businesses as they move things around and change units. So although you might hear some bad news about a firm, doesn't mean they're going to be off the market to hiring full stop right now. So still worth checking them out, still worth having a look and seeing what you think. The other thing is looking at where demand certainly has been spoken about. So a lot of big businesses, sort of FTSE businesses, are acting really cautiously right now. Rightly so. They want to protect their current employees, and they also want to see how things play through. Certainly some of the big companies I work with are worried, like BT, etc., are worried about downspin and value loss within the customer base and wondering how the long term might impact them. So they're acting cautiously, and they're also really investing in their internal workforces right now, which is great because it's giving fantastic opportunities to develop your career internally of a business and also internally train. So much investment going on in training and development too right now. But we're talking to a couple of the agencies, external agencies there too, that supply these big businesses, and they're saying they've got massive demand going on, and they're actually incredibly overworked in a lot of areas. And because of that, a lot of them want to hire. Now, the principal areas they're talking about is anything connected to data and insight and understanding the customer and what's going on with the customer mindset, and then plugging into things like CRM and stuff like that, and also digital performance too. Unfortunately, brand has kind of fallen off a cliff. It's just with, you know, media spend being smashed so heavily by end businesses, it's kind of understandable that perhaps the demand doesn't sit there right now, but it's something that will bounce back, I guess, when lockdown releases and people are going out more and that consumer confidence comes back more. But right now, that's the one area for what we supply to that we recognise is a real hit back, unfortunately, in that space. But some of the big agencies are saying they can't go to hire right now because they're part of group organisations, and the group organisations have put a wide freeze on, which is prohibiting them from recruiting. So although they want to be able to do these things, unfortunately, the parent company has got, or the group company has got, much more exposure in lots of different things, and ultimately need to act more cautiously around revenue generation and stuff like that. So we could see, though, with this pent-up demand and the likes growing with these agencies, that could result in job creation at some stage. It's only a question of when. Some of the agencies we're talking to are saying over the next month or two, some up to 3 months in advance, are saying that that's when they expect they may be able to come back to hiring. But nonetheless, the underpin of the requirement is there from them. So they are trying to manage what they can with the resource they've got, but there is an understanding that may need to vary. So hopefully there's some positive insights there. So if you're in the job market right now and you are immediately available, and perhaps haven't looked at the fixed term contract market, have a look at it. I know it's not a love market most of the time, but there's less competition from what I'm seeing, certainly from the numbers I'm seeing on the applicant rates that are going on. So you do have a higher likelihood of being able to secure a position down that line. Now, there isn't a huge abundance of them out there, but just know that it's the same as the permanent market in that respect. There's a reduced demand in the perm market, there's a reduced demand in the fixed term contract space. It is proportionate, but nonetheless, less competition means more opportunity for you to hopefully secure that job. So good luck, hope this helps, and yeah, keep an eye out for our other videos. Thanks.